recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 50.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them as he goes along. So
he's the guy that's been checking your work,
that is correct, yes.
and you're introducing him.
That is correct.
This will probably
also.
be a good story then.
Absolutely.
Mayor and members of City Council, good afternoon. My name is Lupe Garcia. I was the audit partner on the city's financial statement audit engagement for fiscal year 2020. I've prepared a brief presentation to take you through the audit process, the audit results, some financial statement highlights, and end with some required communications. If at any time you have any questions, please stop me. You won't be interrupting.
Go ahead, we're listening.
I'm
Just trying to get the pictures up.
There we go. In addition to myself, other members of the engagement team included Tom Peterson. He was the concurring partner on the engagement. His role in the engagement was to review the annual comprehensive financial report and key work papers in our audit file. His level of involvement is one of quality control in the engagement. Cheryl Messer was the senior manager on the project. Cheryl's actually here with us today for all the tough questions. She'll come up to the mic for those. Andrew Trigg was the senior associate, and Ariel was the associate working on the detailed test work. On this slide, we illustrate the audit process, which takes several months to complete. The planning, risk assessment, and our testing of internal controls, that was the first phase of field work, which occurred last year in the late summertime. Substantive testing occurred after the fiscal year was over. It's at this point in time where we're confirming information with third parties, corroborating information in the city's general ledger with source documentation, and performing various analytical procedures. We do all these procedures, complete all these procedures in order to obtain enough audit evidence to express an opinion on the financial statements, because ultimately that is the objective of the financial statement audit, is to express an opinion. To express that opinion, we do consider the city's internal controls. We have a lot of judgment when it involves the samples that we make and the areas we decide to test. We do consider the city's internal controls, but we don't express an opinion on those internal controls, but they do drive the testing we perform and the extent of the testing we perform. The audit is designed to determine what opinion we can express on the financial statements. Ultimately, it's assurance as to whether or not the financial statements have been presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and are free of any material misstatements. On this slide, we illustrate the three possible outcomes of the audit. On the far left is the disclaimer. That opinion would be an instance where the city's records either were in such poor shape or the records didn't exist. We wouldn't be able to express any type of opinion on the audit. In the center, it's a modified opinion. That would be a situation where everything was fine except for the items we noted in our report. And then on the far right, the green light is our clean opinion. That is what I'm happy to report we've expressed on the city's financial statements, so that's the best outcome. So what that indicates to the users of the financial statements is that the amounts are reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, that the amounts can be relied upon as being materially correct. Our audit is conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and so this is otherwise known as a clean report. So this is the outcome the city was hoping to receive. The city's statement and net position. This particular financial statement is prepared on a basis of accounting that's very similar to what's used in the private sector. So this reports all the city's assets and liabilities as of the end of the fiscal year. So as of September 30th, 2020, the city reported $275 million in total assets. The large majority of that balance is going to be comprised of your capital assets, net of depreciation, and your cash and investments. Total liabilities were $108 million. The majority of that balance is going to be your outstanding debt and your pension and other post-employment benefit liability. The difference between your assets and your liabilities and your outflows and your inflows is referred to as your net position or the net worth of the city. and that amount as of the end of the fiscal year was $164.9 million. Looking a little closer at the total debt of the city for fiscal year 2020, that amounted to $77.5 million. $20.8 million were certificates of obligation that were outstanding as of the end of the fiscal year. $41 million were your general obligation bonds outstanding, and then $11.3 million were revenue bonds. You have a sales tax obligation of just under $4 million, and then you have capital leases of just under $500,000 outstanding as of the end of the fiscal year. Looking at your general fund, which is your main operating account, total revenues were $23.5 million. Total expenditures were $23.1 million. You did have revenues exceed your expenditures by $321,000. Your change in fund balance was a positive $173,000 for an ending balance of just under $6.7 million for fiscal year 2020. Your enterprise funds, which are your business type activities, you had a total operating revenues of $20.4 million, operating expenditures of $21.2 million. That includes depreciation expense, which is a non-cash expense. You had total non-operating revenues and expenses of $12.7 million. Overall, you had a positive change in net position in your enterprise funds of $12.6 million for an ending balance of $144.6 million. As part of the audit, we do review the city's accounting policies. The city's accounting policies were in line with industry standards. There weren't any new pronouncements that the city had to implement in fiscal year 2020. The financial statements do include estimates, so as members of City Council, it's important for you to realize that there isn't a statement or an invoice for every amount that management uses to record in the general ledger. Some of the more significant estimates you should be aware of include management's estimates of allowances for uncollectible receivables, management's estimates of the useful lives of its capital assets, which determine depreciation expense, and then the third bullet related to pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities, which is retiree benefits and retiree health care. Those amounts are based on reports and actuarial reports received from the plans themselves and from those actuaries. So we reviewed management's basis for these estimates and deemed that they have been recorded in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I'm happy to report that during the audit, we didn't have any difficulties in completing the audit. Anyone we asked to meet with was made available. Any information we asked to review was provided to us. Any questions we had were answered in a timely manner. So we do appreciate the city's cooperation throughout the entire audit process. Journal entries that we proposed were reviewed and approved by management. There were no uncorrected material misstatements that existed at the end of the audit. No disagreements with management to report on any accounting principles, the application of any accounting principles, or any accounting estimates. At the top of the next slide. One of the last pieces of audit evidence we obtain is a management representation letter. In that letter, signed by management, they represent to us that nothing's been withheld from us that would impact the financial statements, nothing that needs to be recorded or disclosed on anything that's material to the financial statements. During the year, we may answer questions, provide guidance, but at no time do we feel the way we respond is a condition as to our retention as the external auditors. And as far as we're aware, the city's not consulting with any other auditors or accountants on any matters. I would like to point out that the city's report is submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association for its certificate program for excellence in financial reporting. The city has been receiving this award for several years, and in addition to the annual financial report, the city also submits its budget to the GFOA for its award program. So two things that the city is excelling in regards to its budget and financial reporting there, and GFOA recognizes the city for that. That concludes my presentation, so if there are any questions about the audit or the financial statements, I'd be happy to take those questions at this time.
Anybody have any questions for him? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have garbage recycle collection, and Robert.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, I was asked to come up here today to kind of discuss some ongoing issues that we have been seeing in the garbage and recycle industry. Moreover, having a lot of delays in services, and what's stemming this, and why are we seeing this, and how are we rectifying the situation, more or less, okay? In the month of March, we picked up in this city 4,700 tons of trash, okay? Why is that significant? Go back 2020, our average total in all of our service areas was 5,500 tons, okay? Go back to 2019, we're looking at 5,000 tons. We're doing this with the same number of folks that we had in 2019 and 2020, and with the same number of trucks, right? So as you start breaking this down month over month, April has trended out very similarly to March, okay? As a total, with all of our service areas included, we're projecting actually to do a little bit more in April than we did in March. Why is that significant to the city of Greenville? Typically, when we see a large influx into a city where we're seeing large amounts of trash, bulk, excessive items, I can move some things around, add some more trucks from maybe some different service areas. We can no longer do that right now, okay? All service areas are being affected. This is not strictly to Waste Connections Greenville. I got competitors. I have a competitor that services where I live, experiencing the same thing. I've been in some rather eclectic areas of Dallas. They look like war zones right now. This is across all the area. North Texas Municipal Water District just released some of their numbers. They have record numbers over there for the cities of Allen, Plano, Frisco, McKinney, for recycle, for compost, and for your MSW, for your solid waste, okay? So over here, we have everything combined. Everything's combined as MSW that's not deemed recyclable materials. We're not able to specifically identify what that root cause is. That's the driving force. I can tell you the storm had a significant impact on the amount of compost that we've been picking up. That's combined with our MSW here in the city. You're getting those additional stimulus checks. People are spending that money at home. We saw this last year with people staying home. They're throwing out more trash at their house. All right, and then you also have your tax return. So this kind of all was a perfect storm brewing and was released upon the city, okay? This really has nothing to do with my crews up here. It has nothing to do with my trucks. I spent over $100,000 this month getting our trucks fixed, adding new additional parts onto them to ensure our fleet's running very well. I got some very highly trained individuals. I brought in outside help from San Antonio, from Louisiana, from McKinney on a daily basis, and I've been doing so for over a month. I give y'all our full commitment that we are doing absolutely everything in our power to get y'all's trash up and in a timely fashion. Right now, as of today, we have not rolled anything in over a week. We're prioritizing trash, that MSW that's in that trash can, over bulk services and over your recyclable services, okay? So trash is always our priority, get that up. But we've had nothing roll over more than 2 days in the past 2 months. I'm very proud of the work that my guys are putting out there on the street. They're working 60 to 70 hours. We're staying within our hours of service for DOT regulations. But it is a challenging task. They are picking up a lot. These trucks typically get about 10.5 tons on. Our turn times to our landfills, our disposal sites, range anywhere from 1.5 hours to 3 hours, depending on that traffic. That's a significant amount of time taken out of their day that they can pick up trash, okay? It's an obstacle that we have out here. You have limited disposal sites, but it's something that we're working through. I've brought on 5 drivers right now, along with our outside help. We're going to be fielding all of our trucks here within the next 2 weeks. We will not be running spares, and I'm currently working with some other districts to bring in some additional trucks so we can work everything internally here out of our Greenville site, as opposed to reaching out and using that outside support. So, anybody got any questions for me?
How many bins are you currently picking up, or how many bins are currently out?
On any given day?
I mean, do you have a way of tracking how many bins?
So our automated trucks, yes. Our non-automated, which is primarily how we service, essentially the bulk of our service areas is with the rear loaders. The volumes per house is really where we're seeing the significant increase. It's not per your household. It's not an additional cart that they're getting out. Our typical cart range for a route will range anywhere from 750 to 950 carts for that route. So those have added a little bit. I used to be able to run 3 routes in here, early 2020. I'm having to run 5 on trash and at least a route and a half on recycle to get Greenville up right now. So,
because it sounds like you've kept the same number of trucks, same number of personnel, but we're a growing city.
was this,
So
So the city's growing, but again, this goes back to your house count's not the significant factor here. It's the volume per house. Your cart count has not significantly risen. It's the volume per cart. It's the additional bulk. It's the additional compost being left out. That's where we're really seeing the major impact in our abilities to service. And like I said, the past week, we've been completely caught up. You may get a one-off house or a little street here and there. Yeah, I've had some outside guys running. But as a whole, we are not leaving sections down. And when we've left them down, it's been strategic. It's been, hey, we're going to consolidate in a certain area. It isn't thoughtless.
So I saw a post of, I think it was a recycling pickup, and there was oil
Yes.
in it. What's the procedure when that happens?
So we have to go dispose of that at the landfill immediately, so we're not spilling in the streets. That actually happened 2 days in a row. That second time I showed up on site, I was actually giving the guys some water, and lo and behold, they went and cycled the blade, and all that oil came down and into the hopper.
And then what's the city's procedure if somebody puts oil? Is there any type of repercussion to that resident to cover the charge of the extra run of anything like that?
I don't believe so. I'd have to look back at the contract, but I don't think there's anything like that in the contract.
Okay.
All right. Something I wanted to give credit to. I had one of my drivers last week. He was driving on Beauchamp, and he was working one of our side load trucks, an automated truck. Saw a little flash of peach running alongside of him. Couldn't really identify what it was. All of his cameras are clear. All of our trucks have 360 view on their cameras. Jason Williams is the driver. Jason kind of paused, made sure everything was good, went and dumped the can. Still wasn't comfortable with what had gone on, though. He couldn't identify what that movement was. Parks his truck, pulls the brake, gets out. He's got a little girl hanging off the back bumper of his truck. And goes and gets her and picks her up and takes her back to her driveway and explains to her, hey, you can get hurt doing this. This is the type of stuff we ask of our drivers, is look out for the communities, care for your communities. And don't recklessly run through neighborhoods. Don't cause accidents. We're at day 44 right now without an accident in my site. We're at day 232 without an injury. These are things that Waste Connections prioritizes. It's giving a high quality of service. And sometimes, right now, we did cross a very difficult path. This is not something that Waste Connections is seeing that's any different than our competitors, I can assure you. The volumes are where they're at, but we're still impressing professionalism from expecting it from our guys. This is how we're going to operate, and we're going to do so continually despite the volumes.
I guess the question I've got is that you cited the usage in 2019, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
The city is continuing to grow. We're going to see a lot more growth.
Yes.
What are you going to do to handle the increase in growth? You said you kept the same number of trucks, things like this. It sounds like you're not preparing or you're not prepared for the increase in number of homes and the amount of stuff that's out there. So my question is, what are you doing to prepare for the expansion?
Okay, so I believe that may have been slightly mischaracterized. We have added trucks annually. I have a new truck coming in August that's in addition to. Some of the growth, and again, I'll revert back to, I used to be able to pull trucks from different areas to come and assist the city. Sometimes I only had a truck running a half day in another area. Those areas are growing as well further south. I'm bringing those trucks in. Well, now I have to leave them there all day. So I've got an additional truck coming in here in August, an automated truck. Those things can run about 2 to 3 times quicker than our rear load trucks can. They're limited in their abilities to pick up bulk, but what we're doing is we're going to start eventually. I'm supposed to be getting really 2. What we're doing is designating true bulk routes that are going to go through the streets and pick up all the bulk, and that'll leave our containers, our cans, out there free for these automated trucks to run in and get through rather quickly, and they can do it in a much more efficient manner than our rear load trucks. Something I think we need to explore. And really hasn't been pushed at all. If you drive around these streets on trash day, go look at all the cans. Every single one of their lids is up. Every single can is overloaded. The residents are not paying for a second cart, which is fine. But if you go in and look in the contract, the lid's supposed to be closed. The items in there should be free falling when it's picked up. Okay. There's an undercompensation there. We are truly picking up a gross amount of trash. And I started explaining these numbers to our district and to our region. I mean, they're truly staggering. So we are growing. We do recognize our cities are growing. I am getting additional trucks. Like I said, I got 5 drivers coming in. I had 2 highly experienced drivers that I had transfer out from a different site that are now working out here, working as trainers. I had 2 trainees released this week. I can assure you I am working very tirelessly to ensure that y'all are picked up and we're prepared for the future.
Anybody, any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's a lot of things going on, people working from home, so there's more residential trash probably than commercial and all that, but when you're talking about that nothing has rolled over more than 2 days, I mean, if my trash is supposed to be picked up Tuesday and Friday, and it's the Tuesday trash, I roll it out Monday night, and it's picked up Thursday, I mean, that's not acceptable. That's not, I would think, what our contract requires. And I mean, because then what we have is we just have trash cans out at the street all the time. So I would hope that that's not, that's not acceptable, either in our contract or in what we're working toward. It should be to pick it up on the day that it's supposed to be picked up, correct?
Yes, so like I said, we prioritize your trash. So trash is our priority. If something gets rolled, it's recycle.
Okay, but recycling is also supposed to be picked up.
Not by law, though. MSW needs to be picked up by law. Contractually, yes, we need to get recycle picked up and within 24 hours of its designated service day.
Okay.
It was on sparing occasion that it did roll to a second day. And that, again, I reached out. I had individuals working from 3 different sites supplying us additional folks. I had 14 people running the city of Greenville several weeks ago to get the city picked up. Mind you, I could pick it up 2020 with 3 routes. I had 14 routes up here working the city. I promise you I am doing everything I can to get the city picked up.
Okay. And then, I don't know, is it the automated trucks or the rear loader trucks where when you come through a neighborhood and the trash cans are just all falling over and throughout? Is that something that they're not setting it back down appropriately, or is that, I mean, I've never seen a truck actually working because I'm at work when it happens, but what is that when you come home and?
So it can be a number of things. You look at some of the roads and they have hard fall-offs on the edge. This is something we work with our helpers on. Sometimes the helpers will get in the habit of rolling the carts back. If they work by themselves especially, they're working both sides of the street. Pick up 750, maybe upward of 1,000 homes a day. You're picking up anywhere from 10.5 to 20 plus tons of trash a day. That's one person. You mentioned you're at work. They're at work. They're working very hard. Sometimes they do. They push the carts back. They fall over. It's something we coach. We don't accept it. It's not acceptable. Okay. Some of your automated trucks, when they go set them down, some of the claws work a little bit faster than some others. Sometimes you have a little more senior driver in there than somebody else. But finding that finesse, finding that touch in order to leave it exactly how we left it, except empty, that's our primary goal. That's something I sought to bring in some highly skilled individuals from another site that have transferred over here. They're certified, qualified trainers, and they are very, very technically sound, and that's what we're putting into our new drivers.
Okay, and then what about, what do you use to make sure that you are actually emptying the trash can? Because several times over the past couple of months, I go back to roll what I think is an empty trash can back, and it's still got 2 or 3 bags of trash in the bottom, but maybe I would say like a quarter of a can.
This is in your trash can?
Still in my trash can.
Oh, that's not acceptable. I would send a driver back and we would be working a disciplinary action against that. So reaching in, sometimes the guys get in the habits of reaching in there. We reach against it. People get cut. I want them using their tippers on the back. I don't want them hurting their backs. I want them to get your carts empty. If it's an automated truck, they do have cameras that angle into the cans. Sometimes they can't see them. Sometimes you get things that are wedged at the bottom, and hey, when you flip it upside down, the camera's kind of angled up towards the sun. If there's a shadow there, they can't necessarily see it. They work on shaking it out. If it's a rear load crew, it's unacceptable. I'll tell you that outright. Unless there's something that's wedged or stuck in there, maybe you had a sticky substance. We're not expecting them to go in there and clean out every single container.
Right.
But no, it's unacceptable.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right now.
Any other questions?
The 4,700 ton number that you gave us, does that include recycling or is that just trash?
That's 4,700 total collective tons. So between your all these numbers I gave you are total collective numbers from this city, from the city of Greenville, and then our total that we're bringing out of our facility.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yes, are the workers on a time limit to get back into the facility? Because the way they work when you observe these guys working, it's like they're rushing. He's talking about the trash can. These guys, they'll dump the trash, then they push it like it's just like they're in a hurry, like you guys got them on overtime.
Yes and no. I mean, we have contractual hours that we can operate within the city. 7 o'clock is the cutoff. But I also have hours that those drivers are mandated by the Department of Transportation to work within. They have to have a certain number of hours off in between shifts, as well as our restrictions to landfills. Prior to where I came from, over at the McKinney office, we had a recycle facility there at the site. We could run our routes a little bit later because we can get there and we can dump out at the same location. Here, we really have to watch our days. Our landfills close at 4:30 and 5 o'clock. The recycle facility in McKinney is, I mean, if y'all driven over there on 380, it's a little bit of a drive. You get caught up in traffic, depending on the time of day, so we kind of balance that out. Their days right now are averaging, I told you, 60-plus hours. They're working 6 days a week. They're working very, very hard. I want to get them around a 50-hour mark every week. It's not completely possible, but that's something we're definitely striving towards. They want to go home and see their families too.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is food truck permits. Carla Dorset.
Afternoon.
You got to speak into the mic. You can take it out of there if you don't want to leave it there.
Okay. The City of Greenville adopts by reference the Texas Food Establishment Rules. This is in Chapter 25, Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 228. The special, yeah, 228. The Chapter 228 retail food requirements for applicable to certain establishments. They do specify the definitions for mobile food units and temporary food establishments. Mobile food units are defined in administrative code. They are self-contained food service operation designed to be readily movable. They must completely retain their mobility at all times. They are required to have a central preparation facility. In the past code, it was called a commissary. The mobile food units shall operate from a central preparation facility and shall report to such location daily for supplies and for cleaning and servicing operations. To my knowledge, there are only 4 commissaries in this area. We have one in Grand Prairie, 2 in Dallas, and 1 in Garland. So proximity is one issue. They do have to report to these daily, to that commissary. We do have 2 permitted mobile units in the city currently. A Swan truck delivers frozen items, and they have a warehouse in Dallas. We have a new ice cream vendor that operates out of Southwest Hunt County. She drives into Dallas to her commissary to purchase her products and to have the utilization of that commissary for her food unit. We do have a franchise snow cone mobile unit in Hunt County. They have built their own commissary so that they have no requirements for that distance. It's on site, and they built it to state standard, and then is permitted by Hunt County. When they come in for the application, they do have to submit their commissary approval form. It is a notarized document that they have to receive from that establishment. They also have a copy of their health permit of the most recent inspection and the retail food establishment inspection report from whichever jurisdiction that commissary is permitted in. They have a route for the snow cone vendor. If she has a route where she knows she's going to go in a location, she can give that to me for approval. It does have to be in a residential area. She does have to serve curbside for the safety of the children. There are requirements for the warning signals, the blinkers, the flashers, the lights, the curbside delivery area, the door, different things with the state for her particular type of unit. We had someone ask a question regarding a temporary food establishment. And a food establishment that operates for a period of no more than 14 consecutive days in conjunction with a single event or celebration. That is the defined definition in Texas Administrative Code for the temporary. With the single event, that is a one-time operation of that. There is definition in the code of an event. It is a unique public gathering of persons at which food products will be served directly to consumers, such as a festival, bazaar, carnival, circus, fundraiser, public exhibition, celebration, sporting event, or other public gathering. Regulatory authority would grant permission for the operation of the event, whether by permit, license, or other official written document. Foods that are prepared at a temporary food establishment, they have to be prepared on site. That is part of the permit process that we talk about in kind of like an interview for what foods they're going to have at the establishment. The menu has to be approved. It has to be held in a certain way. It's always for food safety, proper temperatures, an approved source from where they are getting their product. In some cases, they have to provide a cash register receipt from wherever they purchased it, so we know that it was purchased the day of the event or it was brought to their location, the event that we have at the city.
So without all the details, if somebody wants to bring a food truck in and serve tacos or serve sandwiches or something, can they prepare it on board? And what kind of a permit or what does it take to be able to have a food truck pull up like at the sports park during a ball game or something like that?
If it's at an event, such as the 4th of July, then that would be a temporary food establishment permit because it is for a certain event. If it is permitted by the state, as an example, one of the vendors for the fly-in this coming up is permitted in the state of Texas, with the state of Texas, as a mobile food unit, so that is the permit that is proving to me that they meet the requirements of the commissary, the requirements of the approved source of their food, the location they are operating from. The working with the Hunt County Fair Board on getting the concessions for their setup with the temporary food establishment permit, each one. Working with the Main Street manager for Fiddlefest or Main Street Halloween, Main Street and Market for the farmers market with their permits. All of those are the temporaries. The working with the Parks Department for 4th of July, movies in the park, the temporary event. The airport with the fly-in, we're getting those applications for temporary food events.
So what if it's not an event? Is there a means that somebody can park someplace and establish a food truck, or not a special event, maybe park by the park and people could come up that are in the park and be able to get something? Is that possible?
Not at this time with the way the ordinance is written.
Is that a city ordinance or a state?
An amendment to the state of the city ordinance. They can have a cold frozen unit as a catering unit called a mobile unit. If they are coming in from another location and they have their approved permit from the jurisdiction they're coming in from, then that would be a temporary event or a temporary business in the city of Greenville for allowing that. Someone wanting to come in and operate on a full-time basis like that would have to meet all the commissary rules for the daily transfer of those products.
So when you say a commissary, I have probably a different vision of what a commissary means. Can you explain what that is?
The commissary, that would be the central food preparation facility. So the four that are located.
That's our kitchen area, off-site kitchen area?
It could be. It depends on the type of unit that it is and what access they have to that establishment, what their have permission on their commissary approval form to have access to, whether they are cooking at the establishment or cooking on board the unit. Just all the different stipulations of the requirements for that one. The central preparation facility can have that cook area. They can make the food at the location, they can wrap it and package it, and then they can serve it on the unit. Or they can go to an event and make it on board at the time of the event.
Okay. All right.
But that's only if there's an event
Under the
that it's
definition.
tied to.
For a temporary health permit, yes.
So
Temporary.
the person that's coming in with the state permit to the fly-in, are you inspecting that mobile food unit when they come in, or because it's state licensed?
It's permitted as a mobile food unit. They've provided me with their driver's license, their sales tax ID, so they are a legitimate business coming in to do this establishment. And it is a low risk, if you will. I think it's nachos and snow cones, which would be your lower risk. And then you would go to your higher risk of all the way up to hamburgers or items like that.
So are you inspecting that unit, or just because it's state licensed, it's good to go? They don't need a local permit?
At the events, I spent 2 days at Hunt County Fair getting those units ready to go.
Well, because I work a number of festivals around the country, and I see really strict cities that vendors never want to come back to, and I see cities that work with them really well, and they want to come back and they do great sales. So, I mean, I am the one that asked the question about this originally. So I just want to make Greenville a city that is more pleasant to deal with. I've talked to a number of vendors and wondering if there is a difference in, like one example is, what is the difference between tying into a power plug that's provided by Juice or tying into a generator for power that would make them not be able to cook certain things?
That would probably be addressed under fire code. Or anything electrical. Anything electrical or with the fire suppression system, any of the cooking, the more cooking that you do, the flat top grills, the deep fryers have to have the different fire suppression systems with all that automatic, just like you would a retail food establishment on the ground.
Have you ever told someone they couldn't use a generator?
Couldn't use?
Yeah, they couldn't cook certain things because they were trying to use a generator to power
It would
something?
depend on the event or where it was.
How would it depend on the event and where it was?
Noise, I guess. That would be more fire code for the fumes put off by the generator. Because there are requirements for distances from one unit to another unit, distances from where you have your setup to where the public is able to come to. If you are just inside, then that's one thing. If you are at a temporary and you've got most of your items inside and then you do some cooking outside, then you have to meet the fire code for the covered tent, the fire retardant items, the K-type fire extinguisher for those.
How would you say we are compared to our neighboring communities on our food truck licensing?
How do you mean?
Like, have you ever looked into what neighboring communities, the different amendments they've made to state requirements for food trucks and food trailers?
I was with the city of Richardson for 10 years, so we had our own ordinance at that time. It's been amended since. The Greenville Code, I think, was adopted in 2008.
And that was based strictly off of the state, what the state says? Nothing amended?
It was amended in 2008.
And so would you say that ours is more or less stringent than Richardson's?
They just rewrote some of theirs and adopted the 2018 fire code, so that had put extra stipulations, if you will, on
Okay.
the already permitted ones.
And does Richardson have a lot of food trucks or food trailers or events where those are a part?
They also have temporary food establishments. Wildflower Festival is all temporary food establishments unless you have a permit in the city of Richardson, and you can operate at that with an application but no extra fee. All of your food would come from your permitted establishment and be held at proper temperature or cooked on site at a temporary.
And it's possible for a food truck operator to also run their own commissary.
If they build it to state standards as a retail food establishment,
Okay.
like the snow cone vendor did.
Does our ordinance need to be,
Is your mic turned on?
does our ordinance need to be reviewed? As I understood, you said it was upgraded in 2010,
2008.
2008,
2008. Does it need to be, your opinion, revised possibly?
depending on what council is wanting to do, it would need to be amended. Some definitions would need to be changed.
I'm assuming since 2008, restrictions have, there have been more and more restrictions placed.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. The food rules just recently changed in 2015, and it made it more strict. And then with the fire code adoption of 2018, they address mobile units specifically.
Any other questions?
How long are we taking to approve temporary permits for vendors coming in? Like, what's the process? I've heard people say that it's hard to get business done down there at the annex to get permits. Like, your guys are not there, it's taking too long.
Well, right now, we've been locked down with the COVID, and it's by appointment only. So it has to be scheduled on the website at 24 hours in advance. Anybody that has had experience with me in the past has my email, and I've been doing a lot of the permits. Most of the permits for Hunt County Fair came through by email
You said 24 hours in advance. It has to be scheduled 24 hours in advance?
on the website to get into code enforcement, yes. Community development.
So when they're scheduling something online, are the slots scheduled out like hour blocks like you have? Is it easy to schedule?
It's the
Or
two
you doing it by
ladies.
days?
It's the two ladies at the front desk. I don't have a calendar with that.
Okay.
They just call or email me, and I can meet them somewhere, or they can come in and meet with me.
I'll just go in there and do a trial run.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item is, we had discussion from a citizen last week concerning Sale Street racing and pushing. Chief Smith, will you give us an update of what the police is doing?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Originally we took a look at some data, some records from about 14 months, narrowed it down to 12 for a little bit more manageable snapshot. And what we found, using the area of Sale, Kerry Lane, and such as that, and drawing a perimeter around it, a radius, but most of our incidents, and I'll describe what these incidents are occurring between 6 p.m. to midnight. Most frequent days of the week, and this is kind of in a descending order, are Saturday, Thursday, Wednesday, Monday, Sunday, Friday, Tuesday. We have been notified over that 12-month period, April of 20 to April of 21, via 911 9 times. We actually had a radio call from our fire department there at the sports park 1 time, and our non-emergency number was called 21 times. We went out, we took 26, no reports, no criminal activity found, no incident report made. And on 5 of those events, we're unable to locate any issue. Now, that's coming from the public. Now, what we do is a little bit different. We checked that area 485 times. We've checked the close watches in that area 23 times. We've checked on 70 suspicious vehicles. Suspicious vehicle is a very broad term. It could be a pickup sitting in the middle of the parking lot by itself with the doors open, or it could be a group of people, a variety of things where it's going to be tagged as a suspicious vehicle. We've conducted 287 traffic stops in that area and issued 68 citations. So, I started making inquiries of my staff, and I learned a good bit by doing that. And apparently we have 3 groups of young people. They range from anywhere from late teens to late 20s. And these are just our labels. Group 1 is a collection of big trucks. I'm sure you see them jacked up, slammed in the back, that type of thing. Group 2 is just a variety of different types of sports cars. Group 3 consists of vehicles with underneath illumination. So what we're seeing here are people with similar interest gathering. And I was told that some of these groups can be up to 100 vehicles. And that's a large group. No one reported any fighting to me, none of my officers. They've not had to intervene, take assault reports, etc. They've answered no complaints of trash being left on parking lots, and observed none. When they leave, it's typically clean. The main violators and the violations I'm going to suggest are committed by them are the loud pipes, the peeling off, burning rubber, whatever you want to call it, and leaving very fast. I guess my officers have been talking to these people for a while, and these violators that they have coined that phrase for them are the young people trying to be accepted into these variety of groups. I guess they're what we would call showing off. None of my officers have observed what we were calling racing. I guess we're talking about side by side. Now, if people are peeling out of a parking lot, burning rubber, hitting it hard, going down Sale or whatever, it's a lot of racket. I hear racket every night from where I sit. We haven't been contacted by any property owners. I'm considering, now, with the exception of Mr. Quarles, and that sports park he takes care of like it's his, so I do hear from him from time to time about activities out there. But really no one else. In the 4 main locations we've determined are, one is the sports park, the parking lot at Parrish Junior College, Hobby Lobby, in the Academy parking lot, and they're kind of co-located. Well, our plan right now is, some years ago we bought quite a bit of, I guess you could say, stealth equipment to pay attention to traffic, to know when traffic violations are occurring, what days, what hours. That's important for going after the problem rather than just being there on a Monday night and nothing's really going on, but being there Saturday between those hours or whatever the speed indicates. We can address it that way. So we're going to base all our traffic enforcement on data collected, the time and the dates. There's already an effort started through our patrol division. Is when they see these people gather is to contact them, make themselves known. We're the officer assigned to this district. We want to let you know about some complaints we've had. burning rubber, the speeding, the loud music, et cetera. Explain that they are indeed violations. There was a lot of people, including my staff, I have a very young patrol staff, that did not realize where their authorities will reach into a private property situation like a parking lot. So we've started educating them. Yes, you can do these things that, for whatever reason, you believed you couldn't. Well, then these groups, these young people, will just simply request compliance. Don't do these things and we won't have a problem. And then if it becomes necessary, we issue citations. That doesn't work. We make arrests and start towing vehicles. That gets real expensive. But in my experience, you get in somebody's wallet, you have their attention. So if we need to go there, we will. Who's going to be seeing with this task? I'm going to have to hire overtime officers to just focus on that, to nip it in the bud, so we don't continue to receive these complaints. But that's what I have for you tonight. I could probably answer some additional questions if you have any.
Well, will this be made public, this information that you have gathered? Will this be made public?
I'm not sure what I would achieve by going public with it. It's a possibility to say, hey, if you live in this area and you're paying attention between 6 p.m. and midnight on a Saturday night, you know, type of thing, give us a call if you hear or see a problem. We've started a bit of an effort on these loud mufflers and such as that. I know y'all have seen them on all types of vehicles. They're actually removing the muffler because they're confusing that with the emission system. A muffler doesn't do anything for your emissions. It muffles sound. And a lot of these young people are removing the muffler because somewhere, somehow, they're getting past. There's amongst these young people, I understand that they said, well, Hunt County doesn't have to meet those standards, just Dallas County and some of our neighboring counties to the west. So they think it's okay. No, the noise is the noise. So that might be one way. And really, the people that I really need to have the information to are these groups, these young people. Had it been 45 years ago, I'd have probably been on a parking lot burning rubber. You know, that's just.
But the bottom line, I think the public needs to know what you're doing besides, you know, your discussion here. And that if they see these kinds of things, that they should call you so that it gets shut down. I think that's kind of what you were asking
kind of
for.
what I'm thinking. Sure.
She's not saying, well, car number with the license plate number. She's not asking that.
Right.
It's a matter of keep the public informed. These things are going on. If you see it happening, call us so that we can get it stopped.
Sure. That's not a problem.
Is that what you were like?
Because also we need to make sure that we differentiate street racing, because a lot of people are saying, well, I hear racing all the time, but if a motorcycle, like a Harley Davidson, comes like that loud already and they're just going home, that's not racing, that's them going home. So that's an unnecessary call to 911 saying, I hear street racing, when in fact you have maybe 2 or 3 people who ride motorcycles going home that night.
Street racing is extremely dangerous. Would need to nip that in the bud real quick. I haven't seen much of that here in town in many years, simply because of our street conditions and our, sorry, they're my streets too. So,
That's why we have potholes. To keep that.
And then the traffic count is so high.
Well, at least the city doing something about the racing.
Sir?
At least the city's doing something about the racing, leading the potholes.
Absolutely. It is very much a deterrent to speed, potholes, if you care about your vehicle or your dental work. I believe, I know there's some high speed on Jack Finney. I hear it. Whether they're racing or not, you know, I can't move quick enough to get out there and see if it's a race, but I can hear it. And that's a good road, wide open. It just seems that that type of thing is, you know, really mostly falling out of favor with young people. Now maybe it's making a little bit of a resurgence. People are ready to socialize and be in groups again and such as that. This might be contributing, you know, an outlet for young people to socialize.
Okay, any other questions, Jerry?
Kind of a follow-up to Christian. Has anyone followed up with the lady, or I don't know if she's in the audience tonight, that brought this to our attention?
Yes.
You followed up directly with her?
Yes. Right after this past council meeting, when she raised the issue, we had a nice discussion, exchanged contact information. She described to me what she was experiencing and seeing, or what she believed was going on. She says she has some videos and photographs of some of these, although I haven't received them as of yet.
What she reported going on and what you reported and what she observed were pretty much the same, or were they different?
Pretty much, maybe with the exception of describing the racing. It can be just a very loud vehicle moving quickly, and it sounds like there's a race. I did ask about the criminal mischief that she described, and some of the officers said, we don't see that happening. What we see is the earth moving.
Well, are your officers aware that there is a music ordinance for loud music and loud
Yes.
sounds? And they are aware of that, and they're enforcing that?
Yes. When the opportunity presents itself.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Welcome.
All right, next item we have on the agenda is discussion about Reservoir 4 and 5 on the water supply system. Press?
Good evening. I put together this little PowerPoint presentation, hopefully to explain the position of our single source drinking water. As you can see, Homeland Security is involved in this. It's been around for a good many years. This was in October 2003. And what it said was Congress went through, wait a minute. Congress went through, and as part of the Safe Water Drinking Act, they did a lot of additions to it. And I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but what they basically said in the bottom, installing security safeguards such as guards, fences, and locks to prevent access to treatment plants, reservoirs, and distribution systems. So Homeland Security and the government took this very seriously of what needed to be done. Then they came up with some guidelines for physical security of water utilities. This was in December of '06. Like I said, a lot of this stuff has been around a good many years. Go ahead. And, excuse me, what they came up with was, this was benchmark security systems for water, for raw water facilities, which is what we have. Our water is pumped from Lake Tawakoni to the reservoirs. The reservoirs have a very critical part of our water system as sedimentation falls out in these base reservoirs before it's treated. That cuts down on our treatment costs significantly. If we were to pump water directly from Tawakoni to our plant, we would have to spend millions of dollars adding extra filtration systems, screens, grit chambers, and everything else to be able to treat the water. So these reservoirs supply a very critical need of our water supply system. So the raw water part of it, they were saying basic perimeter fencing, enhanced non-climbable fencing, foundation enhancements to prevent tunneling, and bollards are vehicle barriers limiting vehicular access. So this has been discussed many times. On the next slide, it's benchmark security for water support systems. This is our pump station. This is our elevated tanks, our water plant itself. All our elevated tanks have fences around them. Some of them are non-climbable. Some of them have barbed wire on the top of them. They all have lockable gates. Centerpoint, our new pump station, is completely fenced in with security cameras. Twaukene is fenced in. I can't tell you how secure that is, but it is fenced in down there. So we've done a lot of what we're supposed to do to protect our water system. And so, you know, I was just wanting to go through these items here on what they have suggested or told us we need to do. Go ahead, Connor. Go ahead. And Homeland Security is under the National Infrastructure and Protection Act is telling us that we need to protect our water system. And it says if these attacks are realized, the result could be large numbers of illnesses, casualties, and or denial of service that would be also impact public health and economic vitality. One of the next slide. One of the things that EPA, they're involved in it, water source protection funding. There's a lot of federal funding to help us on this stuff, but one of the things they do want is building fences, protect water sources. The other one is protecting our water supply is a Homeland Security issue. In 2003, President Bush issued Homeland Security Presidential Directive, which established a national policy for the federal government to identify, prioritize, and protect critical infrastructure as part of Homeland Security. These are just a couple of signs that we should have up, you know, like the drinking water protection area. There's another one, they've actually put it for no trespassing. The last slide I got, this is the city ordinance that allows fishing and use of reservoirs 4 and 5. And I will say this, as the previous founding fathers of the city, I think they realized the importance of protecting our drinking water source, but they also try to do a compromise to allow fishing and certain types of boating. And these are very strict guidelines in our city ordinance. Yeah, you can catch fish out there, but you can't clean them. Okay? You can't wade in the water. You can't spit in the water. You can't have a dog out there with you. So boats have to be registered. They're supposed to be checked in with the water plant operator prior to even going into the water. I'd venture to say that probably very few of these are even being enforced or enacted. And so what we were trying to do was, because of the situation, there have been numerous cars that have been driven in or dumped into the waters. Those cars have gas and oil in them. Hydrocarbons do not mix with water. They're in that lake, somewhere in the bottom or floating around. Sooner or later, we'll get a slug of it into our water plant, and it'll raise heck with it, and we'll have to do a whole lot of filter cleaning and everything else. But what we were trying to do is just limit it to no vehicular access. A lot of people go in there and dump. I don't know why they think the lakes are a dumping site, but last week we pulled out sofa, chairs, table, all kind of stuff out of the water supply. We've asked people not to go wading in there. Unfortunately, I think a few years ago, we had a young gentleman that got caught in the intake structure at the steam plant and drowned. So we're trying to not limit people to being able to go fishing. We're just trying to use some common sense with it, that people don't need to drive up there. It's also a dumping site, also one of the legal places people use illegal drugs. I think people have told me that Lone Star Law has spotlighted Greenville reservoirs several times on illegal drug use, alcohol, everything else. So all we're asking is not to be able to drive in there, because all it's going to take is somebody to get mad at us, whatever, take 3 or 4 or 5 55-gallon drums of something and dump in there, and our whole water system is shot. We do not have a backup. I don't have any other way of getting drinking water to the residents of the city. And I brought this along, one of the signs that they put up about it, and it just says, you know, don't stop it. The ironic thing is it's written on the back of a very strong herbicide with 2,4-D. Now, this is the last thing we want put in our water. So I don't know, you know, why somebody would do that, but this is all we're trying to do is protect the water source of the city. As I said, it's our only source of water. So that's basically my presentation. This is not coming from me. I mean, all I'm doing is presenting you with the facts of what we're supposed to do. This is a decision up to council, what they want us to do. I did check with Daniel. There was nothing in this ordinance that prevented or allowed vehicular access. That's why we went ahead and put the gates up to stop the vehicular access. So,
Okay.
I'll take any questions.
Any questions?
If after almost 18 years, why don't we have these signs up? That you said, you showed signs and you said we don't have these signs up.
I was told we did have signs up. They were continuously stolen or taken down, so we kind of just, it went by the wayside.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be more than glad to put them back up. I mean, I agree with you.
I think if Homeland Security made this, put this in writing in 2003, this should have been up like prior to now, which I know is not your fault, but I mean, when you're explaining to citizens what's going on and they're not understanding, and all you're getting is, well, for 60 plus years, we've been coming here, fishing, relaxing, exercising, and all of a sudden now you guys want to shut it down where we can't enjoy our fishing or enjoy our time out here. I would like to be able to better explain versus saying, well, if you go to look in the city ordinance, I would like a visual to be there so they can see it. If it comes down, we have to come up with a way to enforce it. I mean, a lot of people fish at these places and that's their relaxation spot or their escape. And it seems as if we're making leeway for them, but then we're also kind of punishing them for us not doing our job, putting the signs up and educating the citizens on what's actually happening while we're actually doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have, in the last few months, we've put a good bit of security cameras out there. We have those up and they're motion sensitive, so we know when somebody's doing something they shouldn't be doing. We can put more signage up. I'd be more than glad to do that. But what I was getting at, I think this was a good compromise because other areas, they have completely shut off access to raw water drinking supply. Now, I know people are going to say, well, Lake Tawakoni is a reservoir. Ray Hubbard's a reservoir. Those are lakes. They were designed for reservoirs, but they were also designed for recreational purposes. All reservoirs were designed or put in there for drinking water. So there is a difference. But like I said, I think this was a good compromise. People can still go in there and fish. We're not telling them they can't fish. I mean, it's just we're trying to limit the vehicular to stop the illegal activity that was going on at these reservoirs.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there, I mean, I'm kind of with Kristen, and I know that this has been used for however long the reservoirs have been there, and people are used to doing it. Is there anything less restrictive that we could do, improving the roadways, having parking areas, or something that could still protect against people, driving off into it, but not basically, taking the only recreational water that we have within 30 minutes and closing it off?
Well, we do have the city lakes, which they can fish in those. I mean, those are stocked. They have, I think one of them is at Sports Park, but they have the same proximity, and those are designed for recreational fishing. They're not allowed any boats in them, but they have ability to go fishing. We do have a parking area down at Reservoir 4 that we had 3 picnic tables down there until last week when somebody decided to confiscate them from us. So they stole the 3 picnic tables we had down there. So we had picnic tables, parking area, everything else at Reservoir 4. The entrance to Reservoir 5 is somewhat dangerous. You got to get pretty good speed up to get up on the levee and then almost come to a complete stop before you go into the reservoir. We don't own, it's all wooded property, it's wetland area around it. I don't think that would be applicable for parking area, but certainly we had the area at Reservoir 4 set up for that. And, the 4 and 5 are hydraulically connected. There's pipes there, so those lakes act as one lake as far as water surface and water ability. But we'd be more than gladly put more signage up. Whatever the council directs us to do, we'd be more than glad to do it.
Any other questions?
Within the Homeland Security guidelines and everything, would there be any type of ability to maybe work with Parks and Rec and make some designated fishing areas that maybe could become an amenity under the Parks and Recs department?
I can get with Brett and we'll see if we can come up with anything. Now, I will take
compromise.
Yeah, I will tell council this: by federal and state statute, we have to submit a risk and resiliency plan for our reservoirs, our whole drinking water system, everything else by June 1st. We have that underway. That will be submitted to the state, and it will be reviewed, and possibly we may get a visit on that. So we are putting all that information together and that's what the whole purpose was, to show whatever risks we have to our drinking water system.
One last question. You mentioned, and I haven't been out there myself, but you have to drive up onto the levee, you have to get pretty good speed and come to a stop. We're not damaging our levees in any way, are we? By vehicle traffic up there?
I'm gonna say yes and no. Our levees, our reservoir they need some remedial work done on them. They're not critical, but we have noticed that we've had some erosion problems and things like that. So, it's one of those things. I mean, I drove up on Reservoir 5 and it was, you kind of going up a pretty good hill to get onto it.
One final comment. I hope we'll explore the possibility of any federal grants that we can get.
There are some funding capabilities now, and we're starting to look into those.
Anything else?
So do you recommend closing the lakes where there's no fishing absolutely at all?
We haven't closed the lakes not to fishing at all. All we have closed
no
it
vehicles
to
at all?
The vehicular traffic. They can still walk in and fish. If they can carry a little kayak in there or whatever, they can still use that.
Do we have any plans to I went out to Lake 4 and Lake 5 also, and the lakes have been neglected, I think since I was a baby. I'm dead serious though. You go out there, you can tell the cities haven't paid attention to the lakes at all. So the guys and the ladies who's been fishing for years, I understand their complaints, but we're just trying to find like a happy medium, I guess, and trying to get your recommendation on it.
Well, like I said, we haven't closed it to fishing. And our ordinance is pretty specific on what you can and can't do at these reservoirs. I admit the reservoirs need work. There's a lot of work we need to do at the water plant, so we're trying to prioritize what needs to be done. I know like Reservoir 1 is completely filled up with sludge. Reservoir 2 isn't too far from it. We look at some estimates right now just to dredge out Reservoir 1 and 2. We're looking at $4 to $6 million to have that done. Is it critical to us? Not at this moment. I'll be honest with you. It could wait a while, but eventually it's going to have to be done. Over time, these lakes or reservoirs are what, 50, 60 years old or older. They've been silted in. We think parts of the lake are only 12 feet deep. You know, every time Mother Nature drops a little bit more dirt into it, then we lose capacity. In the summer months, in a drought situation, those reservoirs supply us about a little over 3 to 4 months worth of drinking water. So that's how critical they are to our whole water system in the city. So winter months, we're okay.
I think I certainly share concerns about pollution and terrorism. I think it's very real. Our whole world has changed in the last 20 years. Documents have been. I think that's a very real thing. I know there was a case recently in Florida, which you may be aware of, where I was watching this computer, realized he didn't have control of his cursor. They were seconds away from releasing some kind of very toxic chemical in the water supply.
That's correct.
I think we all need to be very, very aware of that. That's our lifeline out there. Stores, I've heard, anywhere from 2 months to 6 months of water for us, in case our water was interrupted from Milwaukee. So there's a whole lot of issues here. Just being able to access that area. I don't know what the answer is. I know those concerns.
And I'll give you an example. There was a city in Wisconsin that got a report of chemical contamination. They had to discharge over 5 million gallons of water and have it tested and all, but essentially threw away 5 million gallons of water. And fortunately for them, it was not contaminated, but just the threat of it, they had to get rid of that water and then restock their reservoir again. So you're absolutely right. We're in a different age and time than 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when people would go out there and fish and enjoy themselves. But who knows what people are going to do today?
I think one of the major problems is that the lake's closed, and then if you don't have any information to the public, it's not like it was an ad in the paper. If it was, at least I missed it. But you guys, when you close something just instantly like that, I believe you need to get some information to the public as soon as possible. That way we won't have so much confusion and so much anger amongst the citizens, like I say, who's been doing this for like 40 years.
And I agree with you. I mean, we had a couple instances out there with people doing dumping, and is why we did it.
But that information need to be shared. So if it's dumping, if it's vehicles, because we was talking about vehicles, people was contacting me. I'm just like, I'm on the council. I haven't heard anything about any vehicles being pulled out. So if we don't know, and we on the city council, you can expect the same frustration from us and these guys. And so we're trying to wanting you to open up something. So we're fighting for the citizens, and then you guys here with limited information. So
I agree. We can definitely put some ads like this and some information in the newspaper. And I could be wrong, but I thought we did put something on our website about what we were doing.
Our website is terrible, so whatever you put on there, nobody's going to find it anyway.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right. At this time, I've got 5:48, and we will come out of the work session, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m.
You have to make sure everybody leaves. You have to make sure.
Have you got short subjects? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have an executive session, and unfortunately, you're going to have to leave because the other room up there is taken up by police training, and they've got it locked up for us. So.
The recipe for great food is simple. Make it fresh. Wings to go in Greenville, where every order is a custom order made with fresh ingredients. Wings to go, 7818 Wesley Street in Greenville. Simply great wings.
Need a part for the right price? Look for that red and blue sign. Henley Auto Supply at 1510 Stonewall. Over 800,000 CarQuest parts to choose from. Domestic, European, and Asian parts. Henley Auto Supply at 903-455-1969. 455-1969. Henley Auto Supply has the right parts to keep your vehicle running, and backed by the best hometown service. Henley Auto Supply. Great people, great products, great prices. Henley Auto Supply and CarQuest.